Billionaire came home early. Her janitor said, "Shut up. Don't say a word." The reason was shocking. The mansion was never supposed to hear footsteps at this hour. It was a place that lived on schedules, guarded by routines tighter than steel vaults, and silence that cost more than most people's homes. Yet on that rainy afternoon, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway shattered the calm like a crack in glass. The billionaire owner of the house had come home early, and that single, unexpected decision set off a chain of events that would quietly change several lives forever. Before we go any further, if you believe that kindness still exists in this world, if you believe people deserve second chances no matter where they come from, take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that humanity often hides in the most unexpected places. She had built her empire from the ground up, a woman who learned early that the world did not hand out mercy easily. Every room in the mansion reflected her success, but none of them reflected warmth. High ceilings, polished marble floors, and walls decorated with expensive art told the story of achievement, not happiness. She often returned home late, exhausted from boardrooms filled with people who smiled while sharpening knives behind their backs. Home was not comfort, it was simply another quiet battlefield where she fought loneliness in silence. The janitor had been there for years, almost invisible by design. He arrived before sunrise and left long after dusk, keeping the mansion spotless while remaining unnoticed. He carried the weight of a life that had fallen apart years ago, marked by losses he rarely spoke about and sacrifices no one ever asked him to make. To most people, he was just part of the background, a uniform blending into the walls. But the house knew him. The floors recognized his footsteps. The corners trusted his presence. That afternoon, something was different. The janitor sensed it before he could explain why. There was a tension in the air, a heaviness that pressed against his chest as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. He had been cleaning near the study, a room rarely used, when he heard a sound that did not belong. A soft, unfamiliar noise, almost like controlled breathing, coming from behind a closed door that was always locked. The janitor froze. His instincts, sharpened by years of surviving hardship, told him something was wrong. This was not a place where surprises were welcome, and certainly not secrets. He hesitated, knowing that curiosity could cost him his job, but something deeper pushed him forward. He approached the door carefully, listening, his heart pounding with a fear he had not felt in years. Inside that room was a truth that could destroy lives. At that exact moment, the billionaire's car pulled into the driveway far earlier than planned. Her return was unscheduled, unannounced, and dangerously timed. The janitor heard the front door open, the familiar echo of heels against marble, and panic surged through him. Whatever was hidden in that room was not ready to be seen. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He moved fast, faster than anyone would expect from a man who spent his days quietly mopping floors. When she stepped inside, her sharp eyes already scanning for anything out of place, he stood in her path, breaking every unspoken rule of his position. His voice came out low, urgent, and trembling with fear and determination, telling her to stop, to stay silent, to trust him just for a moment. She had never been spoken to like that in her life. Anger flared first. Who did this man think he was? Employees did not issue commands. Especially not him. But, beneath her anger was confusion, and beneath that, something she had long buried, curiosity mixed with a strange sense of unease. She noticed his hands shaking, his face pale, his eyes filled not with defiance but desperation. Against her own nature, she paused. The janitor guided her away from the study, his movements careful, almost protective, as if shielding her from something fragile and dangerous at the same time. Her mind raced through possibilities. Theft, betrayal, blackmail, every ugly scenario her powerful life had taught her to expect. Yet none of them fully explained the fear written on his face. As they moved through the hallways, memories began to surface for her. Memories of being a young woman with nothing, sleeping in her car, cleaning offices at night to survive. She remembered how it felt to be invisible, to be dismissed, to be one mistake away from losing everything. She had spent years burying that version of herself under success, but in that moment, it stirred uncomfortably alive. The truth finally revealed itself in the quietest way possible. Hidden within the unused wing of the mansion was a small, improvised shelter. Nothing luxurious. Just blankets, a few bags, and signs of someone trying desperately to stay unnoticed. It was not an intruder or a criminal mastermind. It was a scared, broken human being clinging to survival. The janitor had found the person weeks earlier. A young soul running from something too painful to name, carrying trauma heavier than any suitcase. He had known that reporting it would lead to police, questions, exposure, and likely devastation. He also knew that ignoring it would mean abandoning someone who reminded him too much of himself years ago, when one act of kindness could have saved him from years of suffering. So he did the only thing his conscience allowed. He helped in silence. Every day, he brought food. He cleaned carefully to erase signs of presence. He protected the secret with his job, his freedom, and his dignity on the line. He told himself it was temporary. That somehow, a solution would appear. He never expected the billionaire to come home early. As she stood there, staring at the fragile reality hidden inside her fortress of wealth, something inside her cracked. This was not a threat to her empire. It was a mirror held up to everything she had lost along the way. She saw the janitor not as an employee, but as a man who had chosen compassion over safety. She saw herself not as a powerful figure, but as someone who had forgotten what it meant to need mercy. The challenges she faced were no longer about business or reputation. They were moral, deeply human, and terrifying in their simplicity. She could call security and make the problem disappear. She could protect her image, her control, her carefully built life. Or she could step into uncertainty and risk being changed forever. She struggled silently, wrestling with fear, pride, and a longing she had not acknowledged in years. The janitor waited, fully prepared to lose everything. He had already made peace with that possibility the moment he chose kindness over rules. What followed was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, deliberate, and powerful. The billionaire chose to listen. She chose to understand. And in doing so, she chose to become someone she thought she had outgrown. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion slowly transformed. Not in appearance, but in spirit. Resources were quietly redirected. Help was arranged discreetly. Lives began to stabilize. The janitor continued his work, but something had changed in the way she looked at him. Respect replaced indifference. Gratitude replaced entitlement. The house no longer felt like a monument to success. It felt like a place where healing had begun. The janitor's past wounds started to close, not because his life suddenly became easier, but because his choice had been seen, honored, and protected. The billionaire found herself sleeping better at night, not because her problems were gone, but because her heart was no longer locked behind steel doors. And the person hidden in the shadows learned that sometimes, one brave act can rewrite an entire future. As this story comes close to its end, take a moment to reflect. If this journey moved you, if it reminded you that humanity can exist even in the coldest places, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that touch the soul. Before the final moments, we have a special request. Comment below with a single word that represents what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you think. In the end, the shocking reason was never about secrecy or fear. It was about love disguised as courage, compassion hidden behind silence, and a janitor who reminded a billionaire that the greatest wealth in the world is not money, power, or control, but the choice to protect another human being when no one else will. And sometimes, the most powerful words are the ones that stop us from speaking, long enough to finally listen.